Hello, welcome. I'm Esther Piszczek, and I am so excited to be making this video for you today because we are going to paint and it's going to be super fun. So let's get started. What you will need is a piece of watercolor paper. Mine is 9 by 12. You can use a larger sheet if you would like, but because I didn't want this video to be, all afternoon, I thought I would use a smaller sheet for today. You will need some watercolors. I have two different sets here. I have this travel set by Superior Watercolor, and I have this little travel set Raphael watercolor set. And you will need some paint brushes of various sizes. And if you just have one paintbrush, perfect. But the larger the paintbrush, then the more area you're going to be able to use at one time with color cover with your watercolor. So it might be nice to have a larger one. And a pencil. This is a little mechanical pencil, so it looks like a pen, but it's actually a pencil. And yeah, we're going to get started. And I'm going to do this really fun technique that anybody can do. Anybody. I mean, anybody. And also some water. I have a little glass of water here for my brushes. And so I'm going to show you right off what you can do with this piece of watercolor paper when you're done. You can cut it up into little, lovely little courage cards. You could just cut it up and then print out your favorite sayings or quotes from people. And you can make these beautiful little cards that you could hand out to friends or use as bookmarks, or you could journal on the back of them. And then you can see from here, I've painted my paper on both sides. And so one side can be one set of colors, and one side can be totally different. So here are just some quick ideas. I call these courage cards. And Maritza Para at maritzapara.com taught me how to make these in a little class called Doodle Your Emotions. So let's get started. I'm going to change my view and we're going to paint. Whoops. Okay. Sorry about that. If you got a little seasick there. All right. So let me get organized here. Oh, and the last thing I have here are some little pens, some gold, silver, and white. This is not a total requirement. You could use black, but this is another part of the supplies. So the pencil, the fun pens, some watercolor brushes, some paints, and we are ready to go. All right, so I am doing this technique for the very first time with you because I want this to be super accessible for everybody. Bend my paper is a little bit crinkled. All right, there we go. Super accessible. So this is going to be really, really easy. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So we are just going to take our pencil and we're going to draw some spaces on here. You can make them really light if you want, or a little bit darker. And I am literally just breaking this paper up into smaller spaces. You can do as many spaces as you want. And I think that looks good. And then I want to do, so sometimes, and you can also even put some spaces within spaces. So this is very free and flowy. I am just literally doing whatever I feel like doing. So that's what I encourage you to do as well. Whatever is speaking to you, just do that. There's no wrong way to do this. And it's all going to turn out so pretty in the end. You will be amazed. I'm going to check if this light helps. I think it does. All right. So now we're going to start painting. So once we have our lines down there, we're going to start painting. And I am going to use, we'll start out with this wide brush. So I'm going to get my paintbrush wet. And there's two ways to do watercolor paint. Well, there's lots of ways to do watercolor paint, but two ways is wet on wet or wet on dry. So here I have water. You can see that little reflection there from the water on the light. So I'm just adding water to my paper and I'm going to keep it within this little section here just for fun, for beginning, to show you what this looks like. So once I get my paper wet, all the way in this little section here, get my brush wet again. I'm going to pick a color, and red is speaking to me. So I'm going to use this red color that I have here. Now you can see what happens, that it's really just when the water, it's wet on wet, it moves so beautifully. And you get this really cool effect. So you can leave it. I could leave it just like this. Maybe I'll do that. Just put these red spots here. And then another fun thing you can do is you can take a smaller brush and just get it wet and dab all that kind of extra water off of there. And then you can do, so I'm just going to do circles through this. And you can kind of draw circles and shapes over this, and you can see how it's, you can see the white where I am, and I'm not using white, it's literally just water. I love this effect, it's so fun. And so those darker, this little spreading is still here, but then we're also getting this really cool kind of white marks through there. You could write things with your wet paintbrush. You could write your name, or you could write a quote, or whatever you want. And I'm just going to fill in a little bit here, just really loosely. This is supposed to be so super accessible and easy, like no big deal. This is not a Picasso piece. Once this gets cut up into cards and you add your own little sayings to it, it's going to be so fun. Because what you started with, you're not even going to know. It's going to look totally different. All right, so I'm going to pick another color here. I'm going to show you this dry technique. So I just got some water on my brush, and I am just picking a space here. Now, I didn't add water to the paper first. I just want to show you what this does. So along that edge, that's wet, so that might overlap a little bit and bleed through, which will be lovely. And I am staying within these lines, but what I want you to know about this, and I also have this piece of watercolor paper underneath, because you can see I'm going off the page here. So if you don't want to be painting your desk or whatever surface you're on, you might want to put some newsprint down or some scrap paper so you don't have that issue. So you can see when you put this down that it doesn't travel. When it's dry, it doesn't travel. It just stays where you put it. So that is the difference between wet and wet and dry. And so what I was saying earlier about this, about these spaces, is that you can imagine these spaces however you want. So you can say, all right, I have these two spaces split up and this space, and these are all separate spaces, but I want to make them all one color. So you can kind of play now with, we just did this random kind of grid in here, and then you can play with what these spaces look like and how they connect to each other. So that's why it's really fun. It's super free to do this process. And in the end, you get this really beautiful piece of unexpected artwork. And the other thing is that these do not have to be, so I've got green here, and I just randomly think, I want to do green. I'm going to do green. I'm not thinking, oh, is green the right color? Is it going to give the right contrast? Will it be compatible with the color wheel? I don't care. I'm just picking whatever color speaks to me in the moment. And so here, I'm going to do these shapes. And oh, this is super fun. So the other thing you can do is you can actually kind of draw right on, use your color to split up these spaces using the pencil lines. This is not the best brush for this because it makes it's a little bit difficult using this wide brush, but you could use a smaller brush to do this. Let's use a smaller brush and see what that looks like. Now that I'm talking about it. So I'm taking my green here on this smaller brush, and I'm just gonna, I feel like this whole thing wants to be green. So I'm just gonna draw over this line and go, oh, right over my color. So fun. It's so fun. Okay. It's so fun. And I'm going to make this triangle green. And you can do exactly what I'm doing, or you could do whatever you want to do. And you might say to yourself, I don't know what I want to do. Well, ask yourself, what do I want to do? And the first thing, the very first thing that pops into your head, do that. Honestly, do that. That is your inspiration speaking to you. And your inspiration knows way more than you do. 1,000 times more than you do. Happens to me all the time. I argue with my inspiration and I say, no, that won't work. And see, I'm going to see these two are separate, but I'm going to connect these. I feel like this wants to be connected. So I'm going to connect these. And now I'm just adding this other color in. You'll notice that I'm doing this within this larger space, right? So I'm now creating my own little spaces within the larger space, just using color. And I'm just doing it because, well, honestly, I feel like it. That is what I feel like doing. And so this process makes painting so accessible and easy and fun because you're just playing. You're not worried about what the outcome is going to be. And then when you get done, the outcome is going to be amazing. All right, so that little space stay there, and I feel like it wants to be there. So I'm going to leave that space there. And I really like this color actually for the moment. So I'm going to come up here. Let's see what this looks like in this triangle. And sometimes I end up with a brush that's not so easy to use, and that's okay because it teaches me how to use it in a space that maybe isn't so easy. So there, I've got that, and then it wants to come up here. And I have no plan here, none, zero, zilch. I've put zero thinking into this, except for the fact that I wanted to record this video for you. Actually, I'm going to leave that just the way it is. I kind of dig that. All right, and now the circle over here wants to be a little bit green. When I say that, it's just my little voice inside that says, huh, I wonder what would happen if this circle was this color. I wonder what would happen if I left this space here. And I don't know what color is going to go there. I have no idea. But I am willing to find out. So purple is now calling my attention. Grab some purple here. And you can mix all of your colors together. So we can make colors by mixing them together. Blue and yellow makes green. Red and blue makes purple. Orange and yellow makes red. And then you can actually, just mix them right on the page by adding watercolor over a different color over what you've already done. So here now I have the purple. I have this, gosh, my lighting, I don't know. There we go. Thank you for your patience. You can see this is a little bit of a darker mixed shade here, and then the green on the edge. All right, well, if you're painting along with me and you're feeling a little challenged by the lighting, thank you for continuing to paint with me. I appreciate your patience in my learning process. All right, I don't know what this color is. Sometimes my colors in my paint palettes, oh, pretty. They look like they're one thing, and then they actually turn out to be something different. So now here, I just feel like doing this. Let's just see what happens here. So I am putting this little shape in here, totally for fun. Wow, see how that spreads so pretty? I had no idea what was going to happen there. I am just playing. See what will happen. I'm adding this extra color in here. I feel as if my colors are not true to what's actually happening on the page. We're going to just say that that's okay. Now here I have the choice. I can stop or I can draw right through this green. I'm going to draw right through it. So this is the process. It's really, really easy. And it becomes super fun when you just drop any expectation that you have when you begin. And just say, I'm not going to try to make a bird or a landscape or a fish or a boat or a house. Although you could do that. You could do all of those things. I am just going to paint whatever colors I want in the spaces that I have and see what happens. And see here, you can see where I paint over that. You can see how it gets darker. That green gets darker. All right, we are just going to, I know sometimes people fast forward their videos, but I want to do this whole process with you. So I am not going to do that. And we're just going to keep painting together. That way you can see the choices that I'm making. And you can choose either to do what I'm doing or choose to do something completely different. It's totally up to you. This wants to go here. And you can also see how here I have a lot of water on my brush and not a lot of color. And so it's really dilute. So if you get some of that water off of there, and you can get a darker color. See here, it's darker. And that is just because I have less water on my brush. And so that's another way that you can kind of moderate what you're getting on the page. There. And so this was a red spot that came out from here. And I didn't freak out about that or try to get rid of it. I'm just going to leave it there. And if we want to make some more spots, we could use let's do it for fun. Let's just do it. And I'm going to use red. Okay. So this gets a little bit messy. And having a towel is super helpful. Let's see. I don't have one, but that's okay. I'm going to be okay with that. So I'm just going to tap my brush here. You can also flick it with your thumb. I don't want to do that because I don't have a towel handy. And this is a little like free form, okay? This gets crazy because you don't know, you can't control what it's doing and where it's going. And you can see here how this is such dark. This is red, it's the same color as this red. But because I have so much paint on my brush, it's much darker and deeper and richer. So it's really pretty. Really pretty. I love this dark red, darker red. And I kind of like those there. So if you want those to stay, so this was wet, so you can see how it's spread, and it's spread here, and then here it's dry, so it's just staying where it fell. And if you want those to stay there, you can leave them there until they dry, and then you can paint over them, and they'll be more likely to stay. I have red on my thumb. I'm going to put that right there. And then, or if you want to blend them in with something else right away while it's still wet, then you have the opportunity to kind of change what that color looks like. Now this looks kind of crazy right now. I'll give you that. It looks kind of insane. But that's okay because that's a part of the process. And here I've got red and blue mixed together. And so you're going to see this mixing right on the page to make purple. I love it when things like that happen. And I learned something new about the process that I'm doing. So here I can see that this red and blue is going to make this kind of muddyish purple color. And I'm going to travel that through all the way through the top here. And maybe I'll add that over here too. Let's mix some more red in there. And I don't know, I don't usually paint with red, so red is just calling to me today. And I'm going to just go with it as I am, as you can see. I'm just going with it. But when these get cut up into actual cards, you're not going to see the whole, you're only going to see a portion of what's happening here. And that is the beautiful part about this process, is that we're actually not trying to make anything, nothing. That's the fun of playing. I'm not trying to make or do anything. I am just putting color on the page in whatever way calls to me. And if I did this exact same process tomorrow with you, it would turn out completely differently because I'm in a different mindset and different colors are going to appeal to me. So I'm going to take this yellow that I have here and mix it with this red, and you can see how, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Anyway, it turns it orange. So now I have this orangey color because I mix these two colors together on the page. So I'm gonna finish this off here, and I'm going to show you how we can use that wet on wet technique again to do something fun. So I'm being really messy, like really free with this. You don't have to really worry about what these lines are doing. These lines are all going to be taken care of with our beautiful pens that we're going to use. So I'm not concerned about what they look like right now. All right, so I'm going to take my wet, this is just water. So I'm going to take my wet brush here, and I'm going to put some squiggle lines through here. Okay, this is kind of hard to see. And now this has paint on it. So we'll see what this looks like, because that's not what I intended to do, but because this is what came out, I'm just letting it happen. All right, so now I'm going to get wet. Now it's really just wet on wet. And I'm going to use these same squiggle shapes. It's so hard for you to see. I'm going to have to figure something out about this camera dealio. So I'm just going to draw these circles. And what's going to happen, you can see it happening already here. Drawing these circles with water. And they're going to dry lighter than the background. Maybe you won't see it here, so you're going to have to experiment on your own. So you can actually see how they're popping out now? And you can see those circles. That's just from using water on the page. And I love doing this. It's so fun. It adds some texture to it. And it's a little unexpected, and you don't need actual color. You can just play with water, which is really fun. And you can also leave some white spaces, so you don't have to color everything in. I'm going to do a little blue. I think this is blue. It might be black. We're going to find out. I think it's blue. It's blue. So I'm just doing these little squiggles here because I feel like it. But I'm going to mostly leave this. I'm going to mostly leave this just the way it is. Completely zany. Completely zany. Okay, now when this dries, I'm gonna let this dry, and then when this dries, I'm gonna come back in and flip it over, and I'm gonna do the entire other side, which you guys get to do by yourselves. And right now, I have some space. This is the dry enough now, so I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen with these lines so you can finish this on your own. So what I'm gonna do with these lines is I have my gold pen here, and I'm just picking. I have gold, I have silver, I have white. You could use black. Use a permanent marker. That will be the best. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So wherever these lines are, these pencil lines, I'm going to just draw, and you want to wait till your paper is dry. So this is dry enough for me to do this, but if you don't wait till it's dry, you're going to wreck your pen. You don't want to do that. So I'm just drawing. You can see that line there. You can see, can you see it shimmer? There you go. See that shimmer on that gold line at the bottom of the page? So that's going to shimmer. And I am just drawing on top of these lines. So I find it really meditative to just draw on lines that are already there. I think it's really fun to just be tracing something. So I'm drawing on these lines. It's going to cover up the pencil completely and make it look so beautiful. And it's such a simple technique. And you can just trace all of these lines, and I could just use the gold, or I could use the silver as well, or the white. And I'll show you a little bit about what you can do with the white. The white is really fun. Okay, so the rest of this is pretty wet, so I'm just going to do this little section for you, so you can see what this looks like. Just tracing these lines. And if you want to put in other lines, you totally can. Or you can use other pens. So here's my white pen. Make sure this works. Okay. So here, down here on this part here, I'm going to just, maybe I'll do it here. I'm just going to add more circles. And this could be any shape, any shape. You don't have to know how to draw anything. You literally could just draw whatever you drew in kindergarten and you would be fine. Nothing fancy has to happen here. So another thing that you can do, which I love doing, is, let me make this bigger, is you can go in and kind of outline whatever, and I'm going to use this white here. I'm just outlining the darker parts of the watercolor as it shows up on the page. And it's going to be this crazy shape, but that's just because that's the shape of the color as it appeared on the page. So this is a really great way. You're kind of tracing the watercolor lines, and it's a really great way to add some texture and depth and dimension without actually having to know what to draw, because the watercolor is telling you. Another fun thing to do is here, these white spots. I can outline these white spots. That's another fun thing. And then you can mix it up. You can say, all right, I'm going to do some of these with white and some of these with gold. And put these right next to each other. Layer them. Why? Because you can. Because you can. So you can see that this piece, which started out as kind of this funky, I don't know what's happening on it, is turning into this really beautiful, expressive, fancy looking art piece. And then when you cut it up into cards and you put your favorite sayings and quotes on there, they're going to be so inspiring. And a lovely way to use those cards is to just, pick a card for the day or pick a card for the week, and then think about it in your quiet moments and see what that message, what it really means to you. And you might be surprised by what comes out. You might be surprised. You can also, of course, the courage cards. So if you're needing a little extra courage, then you can pull a card from the deck and say, I ask a question and say, what do I need to know right now? What would be most helpful for me to learn right now, or to know, or to think about? And you can use them that way. So here, these are these darker spaces that I put in originally when I was showing you dry on dry. And I'm just going through and just highlighting them. So I can barely see them, but I can see them enough to just say, all right, this is the general shape of what's happening here. And I'm going through and adding color to this. All right. So I'm going to finish this on my own and paint the back. You want to paint the back so that when you're done, you'll have these beautiful cards. And you can also just cut them and then go in and do your decorating afterwards. So you can do your decorating. Also see this, when you have this, you can do all sorts of really fun lines with the white and the gold and the silver. Yeah, super, super fun. All right, there it is. I'm going to change my camera here. I can find it to change it. I light. Okay, great job, everyone. I hope you loved it. I hope you make many, many, many more and experiment and use different colors. And if you have a spray bottle of water, you could spray water on there instead of using your just spray dots on there. You could put salt on there and let it, when it's wet, and then when the salt dries and you put it off, that's going to also create some texture in there. So many fun things to do, so many, and an endless amount of creativity and fun for your courage cards. All right, bye everybody. Thanks for painting with me.